The red dust of Ouagadougou was still clinging to Captain Ibrahim Traoré's boots that October morning as he stepped into his modest office. Outside, the capital's familiar sounds were stirring to life. Vendors calling out prices for mangoes and millet, motorcycles weaving through narrow streets, the laughter of children echoing from schools nearby. His desk lay cluttered with reports on mining contracts and agricultural reforms, ordinary enough, but nestled between budget proposals was a cream-colored envelope. Its official seal made his aide freeze in recognition. At dawn, the diplomatic courier had arrived, refusing to depart until the letter was placed personally in Traoré's hands. 2 American security personnel had accompanied the messenger, their presence already stirring whispers throughout the presidential compound. The envelope felt heavier than its paper suggested. Traoré's weathered fingers traced the embossed eagle before he broke the seal with deliberate precision. The White House, Washington, D.C. The letterhead read in imposing gold letters that caught the morning light streaming through his window. President Trump's signature sprawled across the bottom in bold black ink, demanding immediate attention to a matter of urgent mutual interest. Though the invitation spoke of economic partnerships and regional stability, its undertone carried something sharper, more demanding. His chief of staff, Siddiqui, watched nervously as Traoré read each line a second time, his expression growing more thoughtful with every word. The room fell silent save for the distant call to prayer from a nearby mosque. This summons felt different from typical diplomatic correspondence. The young captain who had overthrown a foreign-backed government now faced a challenge of a different kind. His mind raced through the implications. Why now? Why such urgency? Why a personal invitation from a man known for his unpredictable temperament? The letter mentioned a 3-day window for response, an unusually tight deadline for international diplomacy. Traoré stood and walked to his window, gazing out at the people of Burkina Faso going about their daily lives, unaware their leader held an invitation that could reshape their nation's future. Street vendors pushed wooden carts loaded with colorful fabrics, while children in school uniforms hurried past, carrying books and dreams. These were the faces that guided his every decision. The weight of representing not just Burkina Faso, but the dignity of all Africa, settled on his shoulders like a familiar burden. Word of the mysterious American visitor spread through the compound faster than the harmattan winds across the Sahel. Senior advisors gathered in hushed clusters, debating the implications of such an unprecedented summons. Traoré's mother called from her village, having heard rumors on the radio about important visitors from America. His wife, Fatoumata, appeared in the doorway, her eyes reflecting the same mixture of pride and concern that had sustained him through the revolution. She said nothing, but her presence reminded him of the promises he'd made about sovereignty and self-determination. Traoré folded the letter carefully, his decision already forming in the quiet spaces of his heart. The ancestors seemed to whisper guidance on the afternoon breeze rustling the papers on his desk. America was calling, but Africa would answer with its dignity intact. The Boeing 747 descended through gray Washington clouds, its engines drowning out Traoré's quiet recitation of morning prayers. Below, the American capital sprawled endlessly, a concrete maze of power and ambition that dwarfed the largest African cities he'd visited. His small delegation pressed against the windows, marveling at highways thick as rivers carrying endless streams of metal and glass. The Potomac River curved like a brown serpent through landscapes that seemed sculpted by machines rather than shaped by time. Traoré's hand rested on his prayer beads, each smooth wooden sphere a connection to home and heritage. The plane's descent felt like diving into the belly of a great beast. Even from this height, America's wealth displayed itself with overwhelming abundance. Dulles International Airport buzzed with controlled chaos as Secret Service agents formed a protective corridor through the terminal. Travelers stopped and stared, smartphones emerging like weapons to capture the unexpected sight of an African president walking among them. Traoré's simple military uniform contrasted sharply with the expensive suits and designer luggage surrounding him. His interpreter, Aminata, whispered translations of overheard comments, some curious, others dismissive, a few openly hostile. The air conditioning hit them like an Arctic wind after Ouagadougou's warm embrace, and several delegation members shivered involuntarily. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a harsh, artificial brightness. The smell of fast food and industrial cleaning products replaced the familiar sense of wood smoke and red earth. The motorcade journey into Washington revealed a city built to intimidate, to inspire fear through sheer scale and grandeur. Monument after monument rose like ancient totems to American power, each designed to remind visitors of the nation's military might. Traoré observed everything through tinted windows, while his security detail pointed out landmarks with practiced efficiency and obvious pride. The Lincoln Memorial's marble columns seemed to judge every passing car, while the Washington Monument pierced the sky like a concrete spear. Traffic moved with mechanical precision. Everyone followed invisible rules that governed this concrete empire. His aide, Siddiqui, muttered prayers under his breath, overwhelmed by the city's imposing architecture and endless noise. Even the trees looked disciplined, planted in perfect rows like soldiers awaiting inspection. The Blair House stood waiting like a gilded cage, its federal-style architecture speaking of old money and older traditions. American flags fluttered from every available pole, their stars and stripes snapping in the autumn wind with military precision. Protocol officers swarmed the entrance, their smiles practiced and their handshakes firm but calculating. Traoré's rooms, while luxurious beyond anything in Ouagadougou, felt sterile and cold, decorated with paintings of American landscapes and founding fathers. The silence between these walls seemed to swallow sound, so different from the vibrant noise of African life. His security team swept the rooms for listening devices while Traoré stood at the window, watching America's capital prepare for whatever confrontation tomorrow would bring. The weight of representing an entire continent had never felt heavier than in this moment of American isolation. The morning of the meeting arrived with Washington's autumn chill cutting through expensive suits like invisible blades. Traoré's delegation gathered in the Blair House lobby at precisely 8:30 a.m., their movements measured and deliberate despite the underlying tension. American protocol officers appeared with clipboards and earpieces, their faces professionally neutral, but their eyes betraying a nervous energy about the day ahead. The drive to the White House took 12 minutes through streets lined with curious onlookers and a heavy security presence. Traoré noticed how the city seemed to hold its breath, as if sensing the importance of this encounter. His interpreter, Aminata, reviewed key phrases one final time, while Siddiqui checked diplomatic credentials with obsessive care. Even the morning light seemed different here, filtered through a haze of power and ancient grievances. The White House gates loomed ahead like the entrance to a fortress, their black iron bars speaking of centuries of American authority. Security checks proceeded with military precision. Each document was scrutinized, every delegation member photographed, and cataloged with bureaucratic thoroughness. Traoré's simple leather briefcase drew curious glances from agents accustomed to diplomatic pouches and expensive electronic devices. The metal detectors beeped repeatedly, not from weapons, but from the traditional silver bracelet his grandmother had blessed before his departure. A young Secret Service agent insisted on examining it, handling the sacred jewelry with a clinical detachment that made Traoré's jaw tighten. His aide whispered that this was normal procedure, but the captain's eyes flashed with barely contained irritation. The bracelet represented more than metal. It carried the prayers of his ancestors and the hopes of his people. Inside the West Wing, tension crackled like electricity before a thunderstorm. Staffers moved through corridors with purposeful urgency. The scheduled 10 a.m. meeting had mysteriously shifted to 10:15, then 10:30, without explanation from harried-looking American officials who avoided eye contact. Traoré's delegation waited in an antechamber decorated with portraits of former presidents, their painted eyes seeming to judge every foreign visitor. Coffee arrived lukewarm in delicate china cups that contrasted sharply with the practical metal mugs common in Burkina Faso government offices. Whispered conversations in rapid English floated from nearby rooms, too quick for translation but clearly agitated in tone. Aminata caught fragments about attitude adjustments and setting the proper tone that made her exchange worried glances with her colleagues. The delay tactics felt deliberate, designed to unsettle and establish dominance before negotiations even began. At 11:15 a.m., a senior aide finally appeared, his smile strained and his handshake perfunctory, as he announced another brief postponement. The excuse about urgent national security matters rang hollow in the ornate waiting room. Traoré stood slowly, his military bearing evident as he walked to the window overlooking the rose garden. His reflection in the glass showed a man prepared for battle, not the diplomatic pleasantries his hosts might have expected. Siddiqui approached cautiously, recognizing the dangerous stillness that had preceded every major decision in Traoré's journey from soldier to statesman. The protocol breach was complete. Intentional or not, America had chosen to begin this encounter with disrespect rather than dignity. The young captain from Burkina Faso adjusted his uniform jacket and prepared to meet American power on terms of his own choosing. History would remember what happened next, and Traoré intended to ensure that memory honored both his nation and his continent. The Oval Office doors opened with theatrical precision, revealing the most powerful room in America bathed in morning sunlight. President Trump sat behind the resolute desk like a monarch on his throne, his signature red tie blazing against the office's muted decor. Senior advisors flanked him in expensive suits, their faces carefully composed masks.